Why this conversation matters, because right now markets are tightening, deals are stalling, and sales teams are feeling every single pinch. Whether you're a sales leader trying to get your reps to re-engage cold prospects, or you're a founder watching your pipeline dry up, this episode is for you. My name is Justin, guys, and today we're diving into the strategic and tactical playbooks for turning around deals that seem dead in the water. And to help me out to do that today, I've got my good friend Ryan Adamson here. Ryan's been on the front lines of billion-dollar turnarounds and knows how to spot the signals when a deal is on the verge of falling apart. So here's how we're going to break it down today. We're going to do first a segment in identifying those stagnant triggers. Then we're going to talk about the turnaround blueprint. And then we're going to close out with how to use AI as a turnaround tool. How's it going today, Ryan?
Going great. Thanks, Justin.
Good. So before we dive in, let's talk about how do we revive dead deals, all right? So we got to understand what's killing a deal first. So Ryan, help me unpack from a big picture perspective. How do you at the C-suite level identify when decision makers, from a decision maker perspective, how to identify when a pipeline has gone cold?
Well, I think what you got to look at is you got to look at your overall pipeline for the whole team and make sure that it's not something that's going on in the market that is slowing down your business, not just a individual or a particular stage of the pipeline or the sales process. So looking at things globally, see where things are at, look at what is going on in the market for others that are similar businesses that you are in, other competitors, what they're seeing, just to make sure that it's not an external factor that is applying pressure on your business and delaying things across the board. Those are much harder to solve for than internal issues where you may notice that a particular deal that a particular rep is working on has slowed down or is not moving through the process as quickly as it normally would or should, and can address that. So I think that's the key thing from an executive level. I'm more concerned about things that are slowing down my entire team. And sometimes those are outside of my control, which necessitates a change in planning from an executive level for spending and throttling back some of our growth initiatives so that we can weather the storm that may be headed our way.
You make a good point, and I want to zoom in just a bit for 1 second. So at the C-suite level, you're concerned globally. Okay, are there market trends, market forces slowing us down? Sort of like where we are today in our market today, right? The uncertainty, the volatility, so on and so forth. And then as we kind of shift our focus now, from my perspective at the coaching level, right? I'm your senior sales manager, and now you come to me for a more macro or micro managed view of the sales team. Now I'm looking at individual deals, and how do I spot individual deals? How do I spot reps who've fallen off of their prospecting trends or who are not hitting quota based on those market trends affecting the global side as well? So when you're training your salespeople, your sales managers, what are you looking for from an information perspective, kind of the up coaching that you would receive? What kind of information are you looking for from your frontline leaders to give back to you to identify those deals?
Well, I'm looking at pipeline health, right, of the overall team to see where the team's at. And typically, in the past, I've always used a red, yellow, green to identify the health of the pipeline at different stages. And so overall, first you look at is, do you have enough pipeline coverage to meet your quarter? And again, all this comes from historical data and statistics that you've gathered over years of doing business or quarters of doing business if you haven't been there that long. But typically there's some good information around your business in terms of how much pipeline you need in terms of coverage to hit your pipeline. And then you're looking at the stages of your pipeline. You're looking to see how much of your overall pipeline is in, early stage versus, best case versus commit. And,
Right.
And from those statistics, you're just measuring against, what the averages have been to see whether or not you're ahead of plan, on plan or behind plan. And then that gives you some level of visibility on how you can support your sales team. You know, if they're behind plan, maybe you increase your marketing spend or increase some top funnel type activities or partnership activities that will help you catch up. Those types of things.
Good deal. So for the reps who are listening to this, and if you're an AE or you're an SDR, especially for the frontline folks, remember your activity can't slow down in slow markets. In fact, it has to actually increase a little bit more actually. And this is just from knowing that in slower markets, the momentum has slowed. So now you have to create your own momentum. And so your top line leadership, your sales managers, your VP of sales, your directors, they're looking for you to continue the same level of activity with the same intensity. But now we have to really focus and hone in on, which brings me to my next point. Now that we know, what's causing stalled deals, right? Global markets. We now know we might have even slowdown in the pipeline. We might even have to shift deals, really get aggressive, getting those early stage deals into that second stage, right? Now that we know what's causing them, it's time to really build that momentum. So, Ryan, from a strategic blueprint for analyzing and requalifying and resurfacing or resurrecting dead deals, what have you seen in your experience? What's the one thing that you can do to resurrect a cold deal?
I would say it's call high, right? And it may mean having your CEO or your leadership, someone from your leadership team call in high to that particular organization and a contact that you have there just to find out what's really going on. You know, is there a competitive issue? Is there a priority change? Has there been a, champion realignment? You know, someone's been moved to a different assignment or something else has changed. So sometimes it's hard to ferret those out for the reps, just because they're in the process of trying to work the deal and they're in a certain mindset and they can't see the forest through the trees. And so you just need to, hey, offer a call with, one of your senior executives just to, see how things are going on that particular opportunity. And there's anything that we can do to move it forward.
You're right. And you mentioned something about that champion realignment, because there's been many times that sometimes stalled deals are stalled because the person who brought you into the deal no longer is a part of it or has been realigned or has moved on. And so this is where, again, those folks on the front line, this is where staying on top of your customers and wrapping your arms around them in this kind of environment is so important, because you would only know if your champion is gone if you're in contact with your internal champion. Am I right about that, Ryan?
You are right about that. But yeah, I mean, I think, most importantly, a lot of times reps are afraid to ask their managers or their supervisors or their C-level people to get involved in a deal. And I've always found the opposite. In most cases, managers and C-level people love the opportunity to get involved and talk directly with customers and find out where they can help and assist in moving a deal forward. And they look at the reps that are doing that and utilizing those resources and those assets to their advantage as being very strategic and very wise in doing that.
You're right. And so I want to help an even SDR or an AE on the call kind of quickly with this kind of three-step approach that I've had in the past. And it's really kind of reframing the problem, right? To realign a deal by reframing the conversation, we have to get back to the customer's pain point. So if you're sending out those personalized emails, like you said, going up to the very top, getting your senior managers involved. But if your managers aren't involved, let's say you are an AE and this is your account and management's is busy, they're traveling, whatever the case might be, you want to start with a personalized message, kind of reintroducing yourself, reigniting the pain that brought them to the call in the first place. Then you want to requalify that lead, see if they're even still in the market, right? Since we last spoke, has there anything changed? Are there people who still need to be involved that aren't at the table right now? Is there still budget allocated for this initiative, right? So we want to definitely requalify the prospect just to make sure that they're even still in the market for what you're trying to give to them. And then last but not least, you want to reignite that conversation, like you said, Ryan. Let's see if we can get on a quick resync to get this thing relit. And sometimes, it does take that initial respark to get going, which again goes back to, being in touch with that account at all times. What else do we want to add to that last one, if anything, Ryan?
I think that's great, Justin. I think that's a perfect way to do it. That realignment and just kind of going back to the pain point and validating that still exists is an important part of the sales process.
Right. Now we use things like ChatGPT. We also use Perplexity and all these other large AI tools, and we're in such an AI centric world. In fact, I not to get into politics, but there's actually in the budget right now for the Republican budget. Again, not to get into politics, neither good nor bad, but there's a portion that I read where Congress isn't wanting AI to be regulated for the next 10 years. Why on earth would Congress not want AI to be regulated? Because that's the next emerging market, and nobody wants to, regulate or overregulate an emerging market. And so with that being said, AI is now at the forefront of what we do. So Ryan, how do we use AI to help us reignite those stalled deals or re-engage prospects effectively?
Well, I think AI is good at and best at analyzing large amounts of data. So it can really help you see new things about an opportunity or a market or a customer that you just couldn't see previously because you didn't have access to all the information and the time to analyze and synthesize all that information into something that made sense. So using AI is definitely an advantage for those that are embracing it to really look at the overall opportunity in a much different and a much bigger light, and give you some new insights that maybe you hadn't thought of previously.
Right. There's a lot of software out there, scanning the pipeline again for stagnation indicators. We haven't had a response in 14 days. There's no follow-up scheduled. So AI can do all of these things. Maybe we even have an AI generated heat map to prioritize outreach based on urgency and likelihood of revival. So many buying signals can take place from an AI perspective. Then, of course, once you do get that client or that customer back into a cadence, now we want to humanize our AI outreach. Guys, nothing, and I've made this mistake too, nothing sucks more than your customer knowing that you're, that you're using AI. So we want to make sure that we're training our prompts to sound as human as possible, right? And so we want to make sure that you're driving AI and you're using it to automate those tasks that make your life easier and better, so that of course you can close more effectively and efficiently. And then last but not least, you want to automate that follow-up, right? Automate follow-up to keep that customer warm, so that you're not losing sight of your clientele across the buying cycle. Ryan, this has been a great conversation. So we've looked at how AI can elevate your turnaround strategy. We've identified at-risk deals, humanize the outreach, automate the follow-up. But here's the key: AI is only effective as the human behind it, like I said. So you can't just set it and forget it. You need to have a blend of data-driven insights with genuine, real, value-driven conversations. Ryan, before we move on to our closing segment or our closing, any final thoughts on where AI is headed in deal recovery?
No, I think the most important thing with AI is just learning how to use it to augment your business and your decision making. And like I said, it's best at taking lots of information and helping you make sense of it. So learning how to embrace that and use it in a daily way, in the way that you do your job and do your activities, and integrating it into what you're doing to make you smarter, make you see the full picture, and give you new ideas and new ways to think about attacking that particular opportunity is beneficial to everyone.
You're absolutely right. Segmentation of data, understanding who you're talking to, when you're talking to them, and what you're talking to them about at every stage is so important. And AI can do that. And this is exactly what you'll need to do in that 3-step framework of just, re-engaging, right? Reconnecting with them. And then, of course, making sure that we're reigniting that pain point. Why did they get on that call with you in the first place? And then using follow-up to get them back on a call. And as Ryan said, even getting the big guns involved, right? Hey, send that message to your sales manager. Send that message to your VP of sales. Hey, I need the big guns for this one. I need you to get this guy, go to the highest level. Like you said, aim high to see where the deal has stalled and if leadership can get you back on track. All right, let's wrap this up, man. Today, we've covered the triggers that cause deals to stall, the blueprints for turning them around, and how AI can give you the edge in re-engaging prospects without sounding robotic. And so if you're listening to this and you're struggling to keep your pipeline warm, reach out to me on LinkedIn. My name is Justin. You can reach me at Justin L. Pugh or Ryan Adamson, at Ryan Adamson. Let's talk through some of these strategies one-on-one. Let's get you back in the game. Let's see if we can help you in any way. And if there's anything we can do for you guys, let us know. And until next week, we'll see you guys again. And that's it.